I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. I want to talk about a new court ruling in the Smartmatic defamation case against Fox and the settlement that Fox entered into with Dominion in Delaware Superior Court for $787.5 million is having a massive ripple effect, especially in Smartmatic's defamation case against Fox and Fox Corporation in New York State Court, where that defamation case is pending. And previously, a judicial hearing officer, which is not the judge, it's called the JHO, and they make certain administrative rulings and rulings about discovery. Ultimately, the recommendations by a judicial hearing officer can be overruled or can be construed differently and kind of restated by the actual judge in the case. But in the Smartmatic case, Fox actually got a pretty decent break by this judicial hearing officer who kind of limited Smartmatic's ability to get discovery. And just so you know, discovery is the process after a complaint is filed and a lawsuit is taking place where the parties exchange information like text messages and emails and other electronically stored information and videos and all of that kind of stuff. And discovery also includes depositions. It also includes something called interrogatories and requests for admissions. But this judicial officer in the Smartmatic case against Fox kind of limited the time frame, limited the number of custodians that Smartmatic was able to get information about. And the term custodians is a term of art in legal cases and in electronic discovery. It just basically refers to witnesses, custodians of information. So individuals who have potentially discoverable information. And the judicial hearing officer limited what Smartmatic could receive. But based on all of the new revelations in the Dominion case, the judge who kind of oversees the whole case, Judge David B. Cohen, was like, he put it nicely, but he's basically like, judicial hearing officer, I get what you were saying, but I'm aware of this Dominion settlement and this Dominion case. And in light of that, we got to really expand the scope of discovery that Smartmatic is able to obtain in their defamation case against Fox. How do I know it? It says that exact language in the order by the Honorable Judge David Cohen, who sits in the New York Supreme Court that is presiding over this case. And again, this is always confusing when you hear the term Supreme Court in New York. The Supreme Court in New York, just because I think they like to confuse you, is actually the trial court there. It's the lower court. Like the typical Supreme Court, the highest court that we would think about in New York, that's the Court of Appeals, which is, I know it's confusing, but when you see Supreme Court of the state of New York, that's like the trial court. We would normally say in other states, Superior Court. Okay, and this is what Judge Cohen ruled. Judge Cohen said, while this judicial hearing officer, Alan C. Marin, made these previous rulings, in light of what has now been learned in the Dominion voting case, specifically it says, while J.H.O. Marin appropriately and thoroughly analyzed the issues, recent disclosures in Dominion Voting System Inc.'s action against Fox News LLC and Fox Corporation filed in Delaware Superior Court warrant the broadening of discovery as discussed below. So this is a major blow to Fox. And I'm going to go slightly out of order from how this is written, but I want to go to the areas that I think are most important first. So let's go to page 5 of 7. And this is compelling the Fox defendants to produce responsive documents and any deposition transcripts from certain custodians. And so it says here, plaintiffs, Smartmatic, argue that in the Dominion case, there was discovery relating to 90 Fox custodians or witnesses. But in this action, the judicial hearing officer limited it to 39 custodians. The court goes on to analyze the issues, and the court says plaintiffs have established that these additional people who they have identified may have relevant information that may lead to relevant evidence at trial, and the attempt by Fox to limit the custodians is unavailing, and therefore a much larger group of witnesses for Fox now have to turn over documents, prior deposition transcripts from the Dominion action, but specifically here, people who do not want to give their documents and emails and text messages are going to have to turn that over. Also, the court in this order expanded the time frame within which Smartmatic is able to get discoverable information. And so in this section, it's compelling Fox defendants to produce responsive documents from the time frame of September 1, 2020 through April 30th of 2020. So this judicial hearing officer, Marin, limited the time frame for Fox production of documents between October 1, 2020 and February 4th of 2021. Here, the courts analyzed that and has basically been like, in light of what we now know from Dominion, let's go 1 month back, so not October, let's go to September 1 of 2020, and let's not end it on February 4th of 2021, but let's go March and April. Let's go 2 more months of additional text messages and documents that Fox needs to turn over. So they need to search during that time frame and to produce evidence during that critical time frame within which it's kind of leading it. And why is it that time frame? The election's November 2020, right? So in the 2 months leading up to the election, Fox just wanted it to be 1 month leading up to it. But in the Dominion case, they established the kind of common plan of Fox to engage in the course of conduct started a little bit further back. So here, let's go back to September. And then Fox has even been talking about this stuff late into 2021 as well, internal communications where that could be relevant to this defamation action. So expand the scope. This is something that Fox absolutely did not want to happen, and they thought this judicial hearing officer, Marin, was giving them a break. So that was a important ruling there. Another important ruling right here is it's modifying paragraph 1 of an order to compel Fox defendants to produce documents regarding a specific relevancy topic. And I'll go on to explain what this means. Let me just read it to you quickly. It says Section F refers to documents relating to the credibility of sources upon which Fox defendants relied or considered in connection with their allegedly defamatory publications of plaintiffs. Plaintiffs contend that they are entitled to these documents regarding the credibility sources to demonstrate that Fox knew that they were looking at sources that were just completely crazy, that they were looking at sources that were just kind of undeniably false. And, this is some of that Sidney Powell evidence, for example, where Fox knew, where we learned in the Dominion case that, like Sidney Powell, the sources of that information came from people who claimed that they had like spiritual psychic powers, and that's how they were basing their claims of election fraud, and that Fox knew that these sources were not credible. And Fox argued that they shouldn't have to produce this information. They claimed it wasn't relevant. And here the court saying, of course that's relevant. You need to turn that stuff over. There is another section as well, which is called Section G, which is documents relating to Fox defendants' motives for defaming plaintiffs. And this is a broad category of documents. And specifically the motives of they're scared of Donald Trump, they're focused on ratings, and the judicial hearing officer limited that motive information that could be discoverable. And because of the documents that were unearthed in the Dominion case, here the judge is like, well, no, I mean, clearly they need that information. I mean, Smartmatic has to demonstrate that Fox engaged in actual malice, and to prove actual malice, you have to show intent, which also is either intent or a reckless disregard for the truth, and knowing that their motivation was fueled by ratings and profit. That's clearly important here. But the key takeaway is that Fox they were kind of given a break by this judicial hearing officer at first, until the great work by Dominion in Delaware, which had this incredible ripple effect where now the judicial officer, the actual judge who supervises the judicial hearing officer, is like, no, we're going to make sure that Smartmatic gets the same type of documents Dominion got. We're not playing around here. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch. This is big news, folks. So Fox may have settled with Dominion for $787.5, but out of the frying pan into the fire. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. Also, check us out on Patreon and wherever you get audio podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast. All right, hit subscribe on our YouTube, and thank you so much for watching.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.